What's up, everyone? It's Carmen Johnston, aka Mrs. J, aka Queen Carmi, aka DJ Carm Brulee, here and ready to build knowledge with my two amazing co hosts. I am a Black woman born and bred in the Bay Area. I am a proud Gen Xer, radiant English professor, and pop culture enthusiast. I have a bachelor's in liberal studies and master's in English creative writing, both from San Francisco State University. I've worn several hats at Chabot College, ranging from co-founding the Change It Now learning community to co-leading the Chabot Collaborative for Equity and Professional Growth. Mostly, though, I'm interested in transformation by holding space for difficult conversations that will ultimately move us all closer to a more equitable college and more just world.
Hey, this is Sandra coming to you direct from Hayward, California, the heart of the San Francisco Bay Area, where I was born and raised. Who I am in a nutshell. I am a first-generation Chicana in the U.S., also the first in my family to go to college. My parents are immigrants from Mexico. I have a bachelor's degree in Chicano studies from UC Berkeley and my master's degree in counseling from Cal State Hayward. I have been a California community college counselor for the past 20 years. I provide academic, career, and personal counseling in one-on-one sessions, as well as in college success courses. In these Brown Bag podcasts, my intention is to share my experiences working with my community and my college students. You will meet some of my mentors and awesome colleagues who have motivated me to continue doing the work that I do.
Hello, my name is Monique Williams. I am currently an English instructor at Chabot College. I work with the Emoja program. I am the tri-chair of the Student Access, Success, and Equity Committee, and I am a member of the CCEPG. I was born and raised in Hayward, California, and I am a proud Chabot College graduate. I earned a BA from Mills and an MA from San Francisco State, but I never left Chabot. It's my home. And I have been a part of the institution in many different ways. I've been a student, an administrator, and now I'm a teacher. I have had the privilege of seeing the college through 3 different lenses. I joined the Brown Bag podcast because of the 2 women I get to be in conversation with, Sandra and Carmen. These women, with a lot of care, teach me more about how to best serve the Chabot College community. I hope listening to this podcast will give you the same opportunity for growth that each conversation with these women gives to me.
All right, welcome to the Brown Bag podcast. I am Carmen Johnston. I am the host for today. Monique is out on a work big leave, and hopefully we'll catch up with her soon. But I'm also here today with 2 of our esteemed classified professionals. We got Virginia Criswell, who is the Senior Administrative Assistant for the Academic Pathways and Student Success Programs. And she's also our Classified Senate President, as well as Tara Lee, who is our Early Childhood Development Professional Development Coordinator in Social Sciences, and she is the Classified Senate Vice President. And they're going to join us for a conversation today about the rise of anti-Blackness on campus and just in general. But before we get started, we're going to begin with our usual ritual of just what is giving you life today. So either one of you can start with just what's giving you life.
I have 2 things. One is living in my truth with my boundaries that I've set and sticking to them. So that has helped me mentally. It's just good boundaries. And the other thing is knowing that what I do matters. So a couple of students just last night just let me know how much my job, right? What I do help to put them on the right path for their career, and just that makes me feel good. And it's like, oh, I'm living and doing my purpose.
Oh, nice. Love that. What about you, Virginia?
I think that today is Friday. I'm all about a break, right? And just being able to just unwind and just disconnect. And then we also, like, next weekend is the longer weekend. So we get 4 days to unwind and just, yeah, take a step back. So I am excited to just being able to have a break. This is much needed right now.
Nice, nice. Well, I'll say what's giving me life will probably sound odd, but crying is actually giving me life right now. And I think it's just, when I feel those feelings coming on, just letting it out and not holding it in and not holding it back, but just kind of letting my feelings out. And could be from just watching the news or listening to the news or reading the news, or being moved by something, that feels beautiful and heartwarming, or just like feeling pain, so just kind of letting myself cry and have my feelings has been giving me life lately, especially because after I just always 100% feel better. It's been nice to get that relief going. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and jump into this important conversation that we're going to have today about anti-Blackness. And I have a couple of questions for you ladies, but before we begin, I wanted to just read the definition of anti-Blackness from this article that I have about how to heal from it's called Anti-Blackness, Strategies for Understanding, Disrupting, and Discharging and Healing. And this is by Barbara Love, who is a professor, I believe, at Amherst University in Massachusetts. And this is how she defines anti-Blackness. She says, anti-Blackness is opposition to and the negative evaluation of Black people, Blackness, and Black culture embedded in attitudes, beliefs, understandings, language, perspectives, policies, norms, and behaviors. Anti-Blackness can be summarized by describing the ongoing assaults on Black goodness, Black intelligence, Black beauty, Black power, Black connectedness, Black worth, and Black-bodied people. It is rooted in an inability to see Black people as full human beings, either as individuals or collectively. So my first question for you all is, and you can say whatever you want if you want to add to it or add to the definition. But the first question was just, what are the ways that anti-Blackness is showing up in the workplace?
Okay, because I don't want to forget my thought, right?
Yeah, go for it.
When you mentioned Black goodness, that hit me because a lot of times I feel like as Black people, right? Normally we are the most accepting. We would just big you up, pour into you. We will be your cheerleaders. And a lot of times I feel like it's not reciprocated. People will just take it and take it and take it, give it to me, all of it. I'm going to take all of it. And then when we are depleted, right? Because I can speak for me, times where I'm up under E myself, but I will still pour into another person. But when I'm needing that and I go to those people that I poured into, it's just like, oh, I'm sorry you feel that way. Right. So it's just like, it's never given back. But it's just like, and when you need to take a step back, like, well, no, I'm up under E right now. I myself am depleted. So I can't give you what you need in this moment. It then becomes a problem. Right. And I just feel like that's rooted in anti-Blackness and just taking and not respecting that Black goodness.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah.
So it's interesting. One thing that I actually just sent this to Virginia yesterday, and it was this lady was speaking to how non-Black people don't know how to navigate and handle a lot of the situations and things that Black people, Black women specifically, know how to navigate or are resilient in different situations. Because that's been our life. That's been our parents' life. That's been our grandparents' life. We've always had to navigate the difficulties just to exist. And so others don't understand that, get that, or choose not to try to even understand that because they've never had to be resilient in those spaces. And so, like Virginia's saying, when she's on E, or what did she say, under E?
Under E. Like beyond the E.
Right. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
Right. It's exhausting having to navigate that, or having to just exist. Right. It's exhausting. And so that cliche of, oh, being Black is exhausting. It's a real, true mental, physical, just exhaustion that it's almost hard to articulate, because it's not so far-fetched to where you're like, oh, you can't comprehend. It's even the simple things, and you're just like, no, this is exhausting because we don't want to do this. Like, can I just come to work and show up and just do my job without worrying about all the other things? And the answer is no. Like, we haven't figured out a way. We're just not, I won't say we haven't figured out a way. The way America is set up, that's what it is and how it is. And it's exhausting.
Yeah, I hear that sense of exhaustion. I mean, my husband and daughter and I were talking about just like, I guess maybe on social media, there's a lot of stuff around like the feeling of Black people feeling like the world is kind of waiting for us to do something about the present situation. Because I think a lot of, like, when we think about the DEI, movement, I mean, even though we've been doing that stuff forever, but the big pull that happened in 2020 was because of the George Floyd murder, and Black Lives Matter, and Black people kind of, going out into the streets. And there's some vibe around like looking to us to kind of start a movement or start a revolution or, start that resistance. And Black folks are tired, I don't know how long we can tell people like what it is, what this country is and what's going on. And then so many times be told we're conspiracy theorists, just so not believed. And now we're like, look, we tried to tell you this person was a white supremacist 8 years ago. And no, people got fired. I remember Jamel Hill got fired because she said Donald Trump was racist. And now look, so yeah, I think that sense of exhaustion is real. And that weight, kind of like you were saying, Virginia, like, oh, you need help, but you're supposed to be the mule of the world. You're just supposed to just keep going and going, right? Do you all, I mean, without getting personal, but can you think of like specific examples of like things that you've seen or heard, or just talk more about like what it actually looks like, especially for our listeners that may not know that they're even being anti-Black? I mean, yeah.
Sure. So specifically, narrowing it back down just to like things here at Chabot or the district, or even, the LPC, just so one scenario that I know of specifically, so there is a Black employee and their manager is not. The manager was literally trying to force the Black employee to work out of class. And so once it was understood, like, that I'm working out of class, I can't do that,
What does that mean, Tara, to work out of class?
Meaning, for example, I have a job description, you have a job description, and we have different jobs, right? And so the Black employee was being forced to do things of another job description that is not their job. So that's considered working out of class. And the other individual, the other employee was a non-Black employee as well. And so this has happened multiple times, different campuses, but the same example. And I sit there and I'm like, how is it that people in power are so comfortable, willing to draw a hard line in the sand to say, hey, you're going to do this, even if it's not your job, because I said so. And they don't feel no type of obligation to have the person who it's really their job do their job. And so after you hear one scenario like this, you're like, well, that's crazy, but okay. And then it comes up again and you're like, well, wait a minute. How does this keep happening, and why does it keep happening? Because we all have a job description, and it's very easy to read what's expected of you. And then you would think, once the manager identify, like, oh, ABC is not on so and so's job description, let me stop trying to force this and move on, right? But that hasn't been the case. And so it turns into this, you're going to do it because I said you're going to do it. And then other entities have to get involved, right? The union and whereas you're just going, if take a step back, stop with so that's one example.
Yeah, it sounds very much like slavery, like you just do it because I said so, and you have to do it, but this other person doesn't have to.
For sure. That's exactly how it feels. It definitely feels like slavery, like all the generational things, slavery, Jim Crow, it just feels like, and so I think it was more shocking to me to hear that it wasn't a one-off isolated incident. And then you just sit there and you're like, well, what is this? What's happening? And so as you start to realize, oh, it's just not this isolated incidence of anti-Blackness. It is coming up more and more and more in different situations. But that was one of those situations that I felt was really black and white. Like, if you're not supposed to do this, then don't do it. If it's not your job, don't worry about it. But that's not the mentality of the people in power that I guess have the authority to say, your managers, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just thought that was super weird. And also, because, you are going, this was 2024 and now we're in 2025. I'm like, this stuff is still, oh man.
Yeah.
So it's frustrating. It's exhausting. And then Black people end up talking to each other to be like, because you need an outlet. You have to vent. You can't just hold that stress in. And the more narratives that are being shared, that's how you find out, like, oh, this is not just an isolated campus. This is not an isolated department. This is, and I don't want that to be the norm, right?
Yeah. Yeah, of course not. Of course not. Yeah. What about you, Virginia? Do you feel like like specific examples or just like what it's looked like that you've witnessed or...
It's and that's funny because like I've heard from like other Black people sometimes like this is run like a plantation. So when you said that, I was just like, ooh, because I've heard that multiple times from different people, or just like the gatekeeping of spaces and just stuff, right? Like I feel ownership to this. I feel you can't come here. You can't be here because I said so, basically, right? Not because it's like, oh, there's a reason because It's more because I don't want you to have it. I don't want you to be here. So I'm gonna hold this space closed and I'm not gonna allow you to come in, right? And it just happened that like this was done toward a Black male. And I'm just like, you don't see how that, like, can you see how that's not? You know what I mean? It's just like, it's exhausting, right? Like to just constantly, just to see it more and more. Like, I don't know if I just wasn't privy to it, or if I wasn't just paying attention, but I feel it happening just within the last year. I feel it just like just constantly, just instance after instance after instance after instance, and then it's just like, really, you know? And then it's like, not only like do you or have I seen and experienced it from white bodied people, but just other people of color.
Yeah.
And when that is what really kind of hits me is like when it's other people of color, right? And how they buy into the white supremacist mindset when it's just like, you want to like really look into that because it's you too.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just like the feeling of always Black people being on the bottom of everything and just being disliked by everybody when it's just like, what we do? Like, what do we do? Like, is it really just because of the color of my skin and that's what this is all based in? It's disheartening.
Yeah, it's extremely discouraging. I mean, I think about this a lot and just kind of the difference of being like Black people on the West Coast versus like other places. Because I think we don't have, the numbers, that Black folks are on in the East Coast or the South. And so, we aren't the majority when in that people of color group, right? It's like majority, maybe Latino or Asian folks. And so for a lot of us as Black people, we've had to learn how to get along with lots of different people. But they haven't necessarily had to learn how to get along with us. And I think that's where a lot of that stuff comes from, where they can, sometimes align themselves with, not all, but some, align themselves with like white supremacy and assimilative kind of perspectives. And I think if you're a Black person that isn't assimilated in a certain way, or you're not, kind of going along with that, then it can even be harder, right? With other people of color and white folks. And I know a lot of my students who are immigrants, they always say that we're the group that they are told to hate. When they're coming from the Philippines, their grandma said, watch out for Black people. When they were coming from, Mexico, watch out for Black people. So that anti-Blackness is just it's not just baked in the US, it's like baked all over the world, to hate us. And I think it is confusing, like you said, Virginia, because it's like, what did we do, But I think it's kind of like similar, I think, to being poor. Like somebody has to be on the bottom. It's like we got to put the poor people on the bottom. We got to put the Black people on the bottom, right? So other people can feel better about themselves. So it's very challenging.
I think it's interesting that the entire globe, people are taught at a young age to hate Black people. Mm-hmm. That's just, it's ingrained in that's, and so, but it's also interesting to me is when they have a struggle and they want alignment and they want people to get behind them and rally and do this, the first group, just like you said a little bit earlier, Carmen, they call and look for Black people to get on the front lines, to get out there and march, to speak up, to advocate, to do all those things. And that's all the other groups, right? Whether it's Asian hate, whether it's the situation with ICE right now, in the deportation. And I've seen on social media so many times, like, where's the Black voice? And we're like, yeah, no, we're silent. Because when we need you to show up, when we asked you to show up, you showed us your thoughts, your feelings, and what was important to you against your own interest. And so now it's just like, yeah, no, we're good. We're tired. We're going to sit this one out, and we're going to sit out the next 4 years. And so it's something. And so in addition to that, through these experiences, I'm also realizing, like, for, what is it, BIPOC? Is that how you said
yeah, Black.
Like, I don't want to be the B in that anymore. They can be the I, whatever you take off the B, because I feel like people don't mind aligning themselves with the Black struggle when they need to get something out of it or to show how hard things are for them. But then Black people, we have our own struggle against other people of color, because in their eyes, we're still less than them. So no, thank you. If we're going to have to be on this island by ourselves, then that's fine. Let us be on this island by ourselves. But I feel like anytime there's a struggle, anytime somebody has a point to make, they always want to be like, well, let's align. It was hard for, like, this. This is like the new civil rights movement, or this is like the new. It's not. That's your struggle is your struggle. Let's not do that. Like, don't always feel like you have to attach yourself to the Black trauma in order to make your point. But then when we need you to show up for us, you are very much like, oh, no. I don't want to be a part of that. And when Virginia was mentioning people of color and how they have been, like, not showing up, or how it's been disheartening to be a witness to that, I had to come to terms with, even if it's a person of color, they will never understand, because they didn't have to have a law passed in 2019 for them to wear their natural hair. We're still having to have laws passed for us to not be discriminated against. And that wasn't a people of color. That was literally for Black women, Black people, right? Black men and women. The Crown Act So just when I think about that, it puts it into perspective. So and it's heartbreaking because I feel like these are this not exactly the same, but this type of stuff is the stuff my grandmother used to talk to me about, that my mom used to talk. So at some point you feel like, okay, we're moving ahead. And it's just,
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I hear a lot of discouragement and a lot of disappointment, right, that Black folks feel right now. And I think especially, just being hopeful about building a multiracial democracy. And, when we look at who voted for Trump, we see, that Black people, stayed very faithful to the Democrats and Kamala, but we see other groups, had a rise in voting for him. So I think we can feel very just discouraged about it. And I'm really trying to stay hopeful. I still believe that we can have a multiracial democracy. And part of the things that I think about are just, number one, the fact that we have like ethnic studies in California. And that's a really wonderful opportunity for students of all races to learn about the Klan Act and learn about each other. I think that to me, that's where the change really happens, is when we have opportunities to learn about each other. And I know, just in Change It Now in our program, like that's our whole thing, is about trying to build like multicultural unity. And it's hard, it's hard. I mean, it's in those Change It Now classes where the students kind of confide in me these things that they're hearing about Black people. And I don't know if that happens anywhere else, and trying to help them. But it is really, really hard work to make, those, because I do think that our experiences are very interconnected, that really the big bad is white supremacy and capitalism, and it's not each other. But we get very, very confused and very easily divided. But I did want to just pull our conversation back to anti-Blackness. And one of the questions that I had was like, how do you address anti-Blackness? How do you address anti-Blackness to somebody that is, you feel like is acting that out? And then how would you want somebody to receive it? Like if you were telling somebody, like this thing that you did, feels like anti-Blackness, how would you want someone to receive it? So how do you address it? And then how do you want someone to receive it?
do you want to go, Virginia?
Like with wanting saying it to someone and wanting them to, like, how would I want them to address? First, it would be accountability, right? Mm-hmm. Just being like, okay, I acknowledge that, acknowledging it, apologizing, right? Not making excuses, not getting in their feelings or deflecting, right? But it's also, I don't know, how do you address it though? Like, how do you have that conversation of, I think what you did was anti-Black, right? And not want the person to immediately get defensive. Because I think that's also the response too. It's just immediately like, well, I'm not like that. That's not who I am. But then it's just like, so I think that's also like, how do you address that? Like, how do you call that out is the thing.
So how do I address it? Honestly, I take a step back. And when I experience this, I know how it affects me, my health, my mental. So I have to stop and pour into me and get myself okay before I can even think about, let me engage in this conversation. Because since it's already such a tender and hard topic to engage in, depending on their reaction, I don't want to have even a more traumatic reaction for myself. So for me, I know I take a step back and really process and like, okay, I will approach this with this person after I'm out of my feelings, after I can calm down a little bit. Because honestly, my expectation is for them to deny it, is for them to give me the shock and the white tears and the whole non-accountability. And so I know specifically one example is there was a Black colleague that we have, and there was some anti-Blackness happening in her particular area, and she called it out. Like, you realize that this is anti-Blackness because of the situation. And that person was like, "Oh my God, no, not me. I would never." And so it gets into the defensive deflection of, I had a Black friend in high school and all the things, to where they're not listening or taking ownership of their actions. And then at that point, you're like, okay, you're not trying to hear me. You're not trying to learn. You don't want to do the work. You're comfortable being able to say, do, and act how you grew up doing, acting or saying, and that's your normal. But when you're being called out on it, this is your opportunity to learn. And it's just easier to do that whole defense, like, no, I would never. And you're like, but let me show you how you did. And here are the ways that you've done that. Like, let's have a conversation. Let's work on it and be better, instead of being like so defensive. And so, and also, I mean, another person that when I'm experiencing anti-Blackness, who I kind of go to is Kristen. To be like, can I talk to you for a second? Because here's what I'm going through. And I do want to bounce it off of her to be like, am I tripping? Because here's how it's making me feel, but here's what I feel like, the white people, like, here's what. And so she has been a good person to do that with. And so I appreciate her because she does show up. And she has been there and present, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of it too depends on the relationship, that you have with the person. Because sometimes if you don't have a relationship and they don't care about the relationship, right? Like, they're more likely to get defensive and more likely to not take any responsibility for it. But I feel like what I'm hearing from both of you too, that part of it, I think too, for Black people is just kind of trying to find the strength and the courage to call it out. And in some ways, it's almost like we have to let go of the outcome because we just don't know how somebody is going to respond, right? We don't know if they're going to take accountability or not. We don't know if they're going to be able to not get defensive, right? And when we look at like the white supremacist culture characteristics, like white defensiveness is like one of the big ones. That's a big characteristic of white supremacy, is defensiveness. So if you're standing against white supremacy and you are defensive, then you might want to think about like that you're enacting white supremacy when you get defensive, right? So for people who are listening. So how do you kind of take care of your body in order to hear what the person is saying, so that you can't react? And I think even if somebody says, to me, if I tell you, I felt like this was anti-Blackness, I would rather somebody say like, I hear you, and I just need a moment to think about what you said. And I will get back to you, rather than do all the things you guys were saying. Like, I know, just say, because I think it's hard for anybody to be told that they did something wrong, right? Like, we all have that feeling in our body. But I think if somebody cares enough about the relationship and about you to tell them, then that's actually like an opportunity that shouldn't be squandered, right? Because you're trying for something. You're trying for something in a relationship with somebody, right? When you tell them that. So, yeah, I think that's good.
I think the white fragility is a very much a thing. And so and like the relationship part, it will come from people who you think you have a relationship with. And I think that for me has been the most eye-opening. So yeah, when you were saying, oh, well, if you're trying to build a relationship, then they would, but so it's hard. It's hard because I think that's a shocker. Like when you're like experiencing that, but,
yeah, because it shows you, right? I mean, if you're in a relationship with somebody, I feel like it's kind of with anything. Like if you're in a relationship with a friend, and you tell them that they did something that hurt you, and they're just like, no, I didn't, you're tripping, blah, blah, blah. That's information about that relationship, right? You know, like, oh, like you don't, and sometimes it's just like people they don't have the capacity, they don't know how to hear things, you know? So I think that that's part of the problem. But I think the main thing is for us just to call it out, you know, and like, sometimes people are going to be able to hear it and do what they can with it. And sometimes they're just not, you know, because of where people are at. Well, my other question was just like, what do you guys feel like the impact of anti-Blackness is on Black people?
Stress, deterioration of health, deterioration of mental health, deterioration of just happiness, deterioration of feeling like you belong. It's just, it hits all the fibers of your being, just a human, right? And then it's exhausting, and stress always manifests itself into the physical. And I know that for Black women, we're the leading number of demographic that have the highest autoimmune deficiency diseases that's caused and triggered from stress. And so, just like you were saying, it's hard for people to accept the fact when they're getting called out for this behavior. It's even more hard for us who have to keep eating it and burying it down and pushing it down and pushing it down. And then we're literally killing ourselves and twisting ourselves in knots to show up, just to exist. So that's what I think the impact is on us.
Yeah, I feel like when you're talking about that twisting of knots, in the CCEPG, we have this, one of our principles of how we do our work is trying to explore the trauma of assimilation. And I think that's what it is, how you are, you know, putting down feelings, smiling when you don't feel like smiling, you know, doing things to help things go well at work when you're experiencing that anti-Blackness. And that's trauma. That's trauma for Black people, right? Having to bury things down and, you know, contort yourself to fit into the institution. What about you, Virginia? What do you think are some of the impacts of anti-Blackness on Black people?
I think in like when you think about, like, you know, the stuffing it down, the turning yourself in knots, the code switching, right? You can't show up as your true self in a space. Like, you also lose yourself in the process of that, right? Like, because I got to be one way in this group, or be one way when I'm at work, or as opposed to being, you know, when I'm at home, which that's difficult, right? But also you think about, if I don't feel accepted, if I don't feel like I belong, it's also just thinking, well, I'm gonna go somewhere else. And I think that's another part of it, right? Because I have heard from just different people that have experienced in this, just feeling like, I don't think I want to be here. I think I'll just, you know, find me somewhere else to be where I can be happy, right? And just that, you know, that Black joy, stripping you of that, like.
So retention is a big issue, right? If like you're experiencing that anti-Blackness and you're not, and I feel like there's some data and studies around that, but just like how many Black people kind of don't stay in academia because of the anti-Blackness. It's very hard to keep Black staff and faculty, right, when they're experiencing that. That's like a huge deal. I will say too that I think, you know, that the experience of classified is probably different than faculty, like for me, because I don't necessarily have like a supervisor, you know, that I have to, that's managing me in some way. So the experiences that I have with anti-Blackness are a little bit different. It's kind of more interacting with people that are my peers, but don't necessarily. I think now it's a little different because I've been at Chabot for long, but when I first started, it was really hard, you know, it was really, really hard. And Chabot wasn't as diverse as it is now. And just, lots of weird things that I could be here all day talking about, and still some things, where it doesn't feel like I can step back at all. Like people are still expecting me to do things, even though I'm exhausted, right? It's very, very challenging. Was there anything else that you all wanted to add or say about anti-Blackness before we wrap up?
I do. I wanted to say two more things that I've heard from other people, and it's the policing of Black answers. So you ask someone a question, they give you their answer, and you continue to ask them and like almost berate them until you get the answer you want. And you're like, no, I answered you. I said what my true authentic answer is, but because you don't like it, you're going to keep nitpicking and going at me and going at me. And so again, it's not an isolated incident. And when I heard it from multiple Black people, I'm like, what is the policing of conversation? Like, just, it's okay. Like, people can have differing opinions. And again, it's been with the Black employees and non-Black managers, right? And so it's a weird thing. And everybody is very much in the season of their life that they're grown. We're not talking about, you know what I mean? In your 50s and above, right? And
Yeah.
you had some experience in life that you're like, no, I'm pretty sure I know how to answer. I don't need you to whitewash my answer. I don't need you to change. Like, I'm educated and articulate. I got this. And so that's been a thing. And then the other thing I've noticed is when Black people feel like, okay, I'm exhausted, I need to step back and focus on my mental health and the people that pour into me, going back to what Virginia was saying, oh, that's a huge problem for them. They don't understand how dare Black people decide, like Virginia said, not to be the entertainment. How dare you not speak to me? And I don't mean in an unprofessional way, like, or collegial way, like, yeah, in a meeting, or if it's work-based, how can I support you? What do you need help with? Or what's the project? But just outside of that, the social, let's be friends, let's do that has been a huge problematic experience for people. And I'm just like, I don't know how to tell you that Black people have the opportunity to step back and worry about their mental health. It's okay. And we don't need your permission to do so.
Yeah.
But after this kept happening, and I've seen it with multiple different people, I just started being like, a question like, what is this? What's going on? And why is this? You want to be like, why is this anti-Blackness happening? Why can't we should all understand, especially after COVID, how important it is to maintain your mental health and what that looks like. And then my other question is, how was another group offended by that? What in them that's triggering that they feel like, well, why aren't you speaking to, like, as if they're the center of like the focus, and how dare you not speak to me? How dare you not? And so those are the other two experiences and topics that I've heard about that I wanted to elevate.
Yeah, I know you're probably like, why is Carmen furry? I was just so much like had my brow down because I'm like, I can't believe somebody's policing people's answers. Like that just sounds horrific to me. That just sounds like what the it's just like, right. Jesus Christ, people. Goodness. Wow. That's not cool. Not cool to say the least. What about you, Virginia? Was there anything that you wanted to add?
Just how do we address it? I feel like as an institution, as a district, like how do you address it? And not, an email that comes out from whoever saying, oh, this won't be tolerated, we stand by owner, right? Like, because sometimes it just feels performative, like, the work that was done in the 10 by 10, like, can we bring that back, right? For, not only students, because if we feel it as employees, like as people that work here, how do students feel? Are students experiencing this in different spaces, like in classrooms, or just like different, like, how do we address it, right? But I just feel like that would be a question, like, how do we address it? Because it's exhausting. It's very exhausting. You just want to be able to come to work, do your job, participate, move the conversation of equity forward and just all of the things. But it's like, if you're not feeling it, like I don't feel like this is really what we stand for. Like, we say it, but I don't feel like this is what we really stand for. Like, how do you address that so that we are able to move forward?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I think that just requires a lot of courage. I mean, I know, you mentioned Kristen, Tara, and she does all that, leading that work around white allies, but I think somebody needs to pick it up for people of color, that there needs to be a group of people of color that are looking at internalized racism amongst people of color, and also anti-Blackness, right? That kind of work needs to happen. And I know, it's been hard to get a lot of the administrators and managers involved in equity work. And, we did a couple of things with them. And I think that there's a lot of people on campus, kind of like you guys mentioned, who don't feel like it's them, who don't feel like they have an issue or they have a problem. So it's really hard to get people to engage in these conversations if you feel like you're not racist. But most of us are in America. There's just no way that we all don't have some type of confusion about another group in our head. Nobody does. Even me, and I do this work. This is my life's work, and I still have confusions about people, And I think a lot of people aren't honest with themselves about that. And if you're not honest about yourself, you're never going to be able to do this work. You're never going to be able to change things if you're in denial about it. So, but it's a good question. But I think, like y'all said, the number one thing is that we get to rest and take care of ourselves and prioritize ourselves, right, as we do this work. All right. Well, that was like such a great conversation, and I hope that folks listening get something out of it, and I hope that you all felt like you were able to share everything that you wanted to share. But we always close. We always do our exit ticket at the end, and this is just an opportunity to share something that you recommend for our listeners. So it could be related to this topic, or it could be just something fun to do, or it could be anything kind of similar to what's giving you life, like something that you want to give to other people so they can get some life too, I guess.
You know what? You said something at the beginning of the what's giving you life, right? And yours was to cry. Yeah, I would recommend people cry, to include myself, right? To just have that release, because I don't do that for myself. Like, when I'm feeling something, I want to just kind of immediately just like kind of suck it up and stuff it down, right? But just feeling the release of, let's just cry. How about that? Like, maybe that could be healing sometimes. So.
What about you, Tara? You got a recommendation?
My recommendation is, if you haven't downloaded it, listened to it, or bought it, get the Kendrick GNX album, because it will give you life. You will enjoy yourself. If after you finish crying, put it on and get up and dance and just release and enjoy. And the other thing I would say is, always find something to do each day that makes you smile. However small it is, however big it is. For me right now, it's putting on Kendrick Lamar, TV off. That makes me smile.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and singing it at the top of my lungs. Yes.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I would recommend, me and my two besties, last Saturday, we went to the San Francisco MoMA to see the Amy Sherald exhibit. And Amy Sherald is a Black painter who did Michelle Obama's portrait for the White House. So that was on display, along with a lot of her other work that was just, oh my God, so moving, so beautiful, so joyful. It was just, She does a lot of like portraits of what she calls just everyday Black folks. And it's just, and then she had like a video room of just her process, which is also really, really powerful to see. So I strongly recommend. It is kind of, I was surprised how pricey the MoMA is. So it's kind of like a splurge or a date or something. But it's worth it. It's totally worth it.
Okay.
Yeah, cool.
I'm excited. I'm writing it down. I'm like, oh
yeah. It's so cool.
And I haven't been there in It's been years.
Well, it sounds like Virginia, we got something to go do. And I'll
Right.
drive, but we got to listen to
Okay.
Kendrick.
So I'm gonna say
But
I hate driving.
I know.
You could take that BART, I think, pretty easy over there. And they have an installation of Kara Walker, who's a Black sculptor, down in the floor. And it's all these really amazing sculptures also. Kind of eerie and it's interesting. Yeah, it's totally worth going to see.
Ooh.
Very cool. All right. Well, thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.